She was singing Christmas songs just hours before. Then she vanished. No struggle, no scream, just gone. Her shoes were still by the front door. The TV was still on. But Jonelle Matthews was never seen alive again. You're watching an unbelievable true story, where we only tell real stories. Not to scare you, but to prepare you. It happened in Greeley, Colorado. December 20th, 1984. Jonelle was just 12 years old. She had just sung in her school choir. A family friend drove her home, dropped her off around 8:30 p.m. By the time her parents got back at 9:30, the house was quiet. Too quiet. They thought she'd gone to bed, but her room was empty. No coat, no shoes, no Jonelle. Police found no signs of a break-in, no signs of a fight, just an open window and footprints in the snow. And you want to know the sickest part? It took 35 years to find out what happened to her. Every 40 seconds, a child is abducted, and 80% of the time, it's someone they know. So yeah, it could happen to any family, even yours. That's why we linked a family safety course in the description and first pinned comment. It's made for kids and parents. Shows how to spot danger early, escape fast, and speak up when something feels wrong. Because most times, it ain't a stranger. It's somebody you trust. Now stay with me, because we're about to break down who did it, how they got away for decades, and the one moment that finally brought justice. After 35 years of silence, let's get into the full story. Jonelle Renee Matthews, 12 years old, a sweet girl with brown hair, shy eyes, and a giggle that could warm a room. She loved singing in choir, loved playing soccer, wrote in her diary almost every night. She was adopted when she was just a baby, but her parents, Jim and Gloria, they loved her like she was their own blood. Jonelle had a big sister named Jennifer. They used to ride bikes in the neighborhood, stay up late giggling, and talk about boys. She had just started wearing makeup, barely knew how to use it, but she liked how it made her feel. Older, prettier, braver. But on that cold December night, none of that mattered. It was December 20th, 1984. Greeley, Colorado. Snow covered the sidewalks. Christmas lights blinked on the rooftops. And Jonelle had just finished singing at her middle school's holiday concert. The school bus didn't run that late. So her friend's dad, a man named Russell Ross, offered to drop her off at home. He said she smiled, said she was tired, said she thanked him, then walked to her front door, opened it, and went inside. It was 8:30 p.m. That was the last time anyone saw Jonelle Matthews alive. Now listen, this wasn't a big city. This was small-town Colorado. People left their doors unlocked. Neighbors knew each other's dogs by name. Jim and Gloria, Jonelle's parents, were out that night. Jennifer was at a basketball game. When Jim got home at 9:30 p.m., the garage door was open. The lights were on, but the house was too quiet. No TV, no footsteps, no "Hi, Daddy." He looked around the house. Her shoes were by the door. Her school books were on the counter. But Jonelle was gone. He called friends, called neighbors. Nothing. Then he called the police. And that's when the nightmare began. The cops came quick, looked around, didn't see signs of a break-in, but they noticed something strange. There were footprints in the snow outside the house, leading from the side window. Just one set. That window, it was cracked open, just enough for someone to slip in or out. The phone rang that night. It was Jonelle's grandma in California. Jim answered, said Jonelle wasn't home. Grandma heard something strange. A click, like someone had picked up the phone quietly, then hung up. That call haunts the family to this day. Was Jonelle still alive? Was she close? Was she trying to tell them something? Nobody knew. Not then. The town went into panic mode. Volunteers passed out flyers. Helicopters searched fields. People checked sheds, backyards, barns. But nothing. No blood. No note. No scream. Just silence. Jonelle had been erased. Now let me tell you something real. In the U.S., a child goes missing every 40 seconds. That's from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, NCMEC, 2023. Every 40 seconds. Let that sink in. It could be your daughter, your niece, your little sister. That's why we added a family safety course in the description and pin comment. It was made by police and real experts. It shows how to protect your kids, how to talk to them about danger, and what to do if they ever feel like something's not right. Because most danger, it doesn't come from strangers. It comes from people we already know. Back to Jonelle. The search went on for weeks, then months, then years. Billboards, TV segments. Jonelle's face was everywhere. The whole town prayed for a miracle. Jim and Gloria tried to stay strong. They kept Jonelle's room just the way she left it. Christmas decorations still up, bed still made, a diary on the nightstand. Presidents even spoke her name. In 1985, President Ronald Reagan mentioned Jonelle in a speech. Said she was one of the thousands of missing kids they needed to find. But nothing happened. No suspects, no leads, just pain. People whispered, made up stories. Some thought she ran away. Some blamed the parents. Some said maybe it was a stranger driving by. But police believed this was personal. Whoever took Jonelle knew her. They got in and out. Fast, quiet, and clean. And just like that, she became a ghost. 5 years passed. Then 10. Then 20. No new leads. No body. No peace. Gloria and Jim moved away. Jennifer grew up. But the wound never healed. Not one day passed without thinking. Where's Jonelle? Was she still alive? Was she cold at night? Was she scared? They just wanted answers. Now let me paint you a picture of Greeley back in the 80s and 90s. It was quiet. A farm town. Tractors and driveways. Kids riding bikes till sunset. People went to church on Sundays and trusted each other. And that's what made this worse. Because no one saw it coming. No one believed a monster was already in their town. Smiling. Waving. Sitting right next to them in church. Back in 1984, when police searched the house, they missed one detail. The heater. It was blowing warm air onto the snow outside the window. Melted the footprints. Destroyed the best clue they had. Small town cops. Limited tools. No internet. No surveillance. Just boots on the ground and prayers in the sky. Still, detectives kept her case open. Year after year. Box after box of cold files. They followed hundreds of tips. Talked to ex-cons. Questioned neighbors. But nothing stuck. Until 2019. 35 years later. A man named Steve Pankey started talking. Too much. He ran for governor in Idaho a few times. Loud guy. Always had something to say. But during one of his campaign interviews, he did something weird. He brought up Jonelle Matthews. Said he knew about the case. Said it was a tragedy. Only problem? Nobody had asked him about it. Police took notice. They looked at him closer. Back in '84, he lived just blocks from Jonelle. He had a teenage son who went to the same school. He had a weird past too, got fired from a job at church. His ex-wife told investigators something chilling. She said right after Jonelle disappeared, Steve became obsessed with the case. He made them watch every news report. Wouldn't shut up about it. Even forced her to read articles out loud. And then, just days after Jonelle went missing, he took the whole family on a sudden trip. To California. No explanation. No plan. Just gone. Sound suspicious? You bet. In 2019, cops finally had enough to get a search warrant. They took computers, notes, old journals, and that's when the truth began to spill out. Steve had written things, strange things, things only the killer would know. One of his notes said, "Close to Christmas. Snow. Greeley girl missing." Another line said, "Church cover-up. Grave dig. No dates. No names." But the clues matched. Too well. But that wasn't enough. They still didn't have Jonelle's body. Still didn't have proof. Until 2019, when a construction crew in rural Colorado was digging near an oil site and hit something hard. A human bone. They called police. Forensics came out. And what they found shocked everyone. It was Jonelle. After 35 years, her body had been buried in the middle of nowhere. Bones under dirt and weeds. Still wearing the same clothes from the night she vanished. They found a gunshot wound to her head. Just one. That's all it took. The case exploded. News cameras. Reporters. National headlines. After all these years, they finally found her. And police knew exactly who to charge. Steve Dana Pankey. He was arrested in 2020. Charged with kidnapping and murder. But the trial? Man, it was a mess. He pled not guilty. Said he was being framed. Said he just wanted to help. But his own words told the story. He had inserted himself into every part of the investigation. Too many coincidences. Too many slips. He knew details that were never made public. He knew about the heater, the phone call, the burial spot. In 2021, the jury came back split. Hung. Mistrial. But prosecutors weren't done. They tried him again in 2022. This time, guilty. They convicted him of false reporting, but not murder. Can you believe that? 35 years, a dead girl, and all they could get was a partial conviction. Still, the Matthews family got something they hadn't had in decades. Jonelle came home. They buried her for real, said goodbye, put flowers on her grave, told her they loved her, and that they never stopped looking. Now here's the part that hurts. This wasn't a random act. It wasn't bad luck. It was someone she may have known. Someone who walked the same streets, shopped at the same stores, might have smiled at her once. Jonelle didn't run away. She didn't sneak out. She was stolen, out of her own home, in the middle of a safe neighborhood, right before Christmas. And it could happen again. You know what breaks your heart the most? She was just a kid, doing everything right. Home by 8:30. Shoes off, TV on. She didn't sneak out. She didn't run away. She got snatched from her own living room, and not by a masked stranger, by a man who probably waved to her before, maybe even said Merry Christmas that week. And let me say this plain. Jonelle was 5 steps from safety, 5 steps from her bedroom, 5 steps from her future, but somebody stole all of it. Now let's talk about this Steve Pankey guy, because even when they found Jonelle's remains, even after they connected him to the crime, he still played the victim. He stood in court and rambled, said he was a scapegoat, said he was framed. The jury didn't buy most of it, but somehow they couldn't all agree on murder. So they convicted him of lying to police and tampering with evidence. The rest? Still hanging in the air. But here's what we do know. Pankey lived just 2 miles from Jonelle back then. His son went to the same school. He drove a car that matched one seen near the Matthews home that night. And he was obsessed with her case. Wrote about it. Talked about it. Told people things no one else should have known. And still, he almost got away with it. 35 years. You know how long that is? That's enough time to raise kids, get a career, go to church 1,000 Sundays. And this man walked free through all of it, while Jonelle laid in the dirt, in the cold, forgotten. But her parents didn't forget. They moved, yeah, they grieved, but they never gave up. Every year, they hung her stocking at Christmas. Every birthday, they prayed for a miracle. And when the call finally came in 2019, it shattered them all over again. They had always hoped she was alive, held on to that tiny piece of hope, that maybe she ran away, maybe she had amnesia, maybe she'd show up at the door one day. But bones don't lie. And the truth? The truth broke everything. Gloria, Jonelle's mom, said in court, "We finally know where our daughter is, but we'll never know why." Let me tell you something most folks don't want to hear. Most kids are hurt by someone they already know. Not strangers, not monsters hiding in the woods, but neighbors, coaches, friends of the family, people they trust. And that's why we added a family safety course in the description and pin comment. It's not scary. It's not a gimmick. It's real help, made by law enforcement, made for kids and parents. Teaches how to spot red flags, how to listen to gut feelings, how to speak up, even when it's hard. Because sometimes, the people who smile the most are the ones you should run from. Let's go back to Jonelle's last day. She was so happy after her choir concert, wearing her little winter coat, smiling in the back seat of her friend's dad's car. She waved goodbye, said thank you, walked to the front door, and went inside her house. She never saw it coming. Maybe she turned on the TV. Maybe she got a snack. Maybe she heard a knock. Or maybe he was already inside, waiting, that window on the side of the house. Police believe it was open from the outside, but some think she may have opened it for him. What if she knew him? What if he lied, said something to make her trust him? And when she turned her back, it was already too late. They say there was no struggle, no signs of a fight, just her shoes, her coat, and silence. And for 35 years, that silence grew louder, until a backhoe dug her up and brought her story back to life. Now I want to say this to anyone listening. You don't have to live in fear, but you do have to live smart. Talk to your kids. Watch how people act around them. Listen when they say something feels off. Because this world ain't always fair. And monsters? They don't always look scary. Jonelle Matthews should be 52 years old today. She should have kids of her own. Should be telling them to brush their teeth, to say their prayers, to wear their coats when it's cold out. Instead, she's a name on a tombstone, a song left unsung, a light turned off too soon. But she's not forgotten, not by her family, not by her town, and not by us. You know what sticks with you? It's not just that she died. It's how long it took, how quiet the truth stayed, how close the answers were all along. That man, Steve Pankey, he stayed right under their noses. Changed jobs, changed cities, changed wives, but he never changed what he did. Back in the early days, he told people he didn't even know Jonelle. But the deeper you look, the more the lies fall apart. He claimed he was at home the whole night, but his ex-wife said no, he wasn't. He said he just wanted to help the police. But when they asked too many questions, he got nervous. He even told his pastor, years later, that he knew something, said it ate at him, but still he kept quiet, while Jim and Gloria prayed over an empty bed. Imagine being that mother. You tuck your baby girl in every night. You braid her hair. You pack her school lunch. Then one day, she's just gone. No goodbye, no sign, and the world keeps turning like it didn't just shatter you. Gloria said she used a dream that Jonelle was still alive, living in another state. Maybe she had a new name. Maybe she forgot who she was. That's how desperate grief can be. It makes you believe in anything except the worst. Now let's talk about that trial. Because when it finally came, after all those decades, it didn't feel like justice. It felt like a technical win. The courtroom was packed. Reporters everywhere. Jim and Gloria sat in the front row. And Pankey? He walked in smiling, like he still had control. He talked too much, contradicted himself, said he was being bullied by the police, said he was the real victim. The jury heard all of it, and even though they didn't agree on first-degree murder, they saw through the lies. They gave him time, but not enough. Still, something changed that day. For the first time, Jonelle wasn't just a picture on a flyer. She wasn't just missing. She was found, and she had a voice again, even if she had to scream through bones and dirt to be heard. Let's go back for a second to something small, something easy to miss. That phone call, remember? The one from Jonelle's grandmother? The night she disappeared? When someone picked up the line quietly, then hung up? Police believe that might have been Jonelle. That maybe, just maybe, she was still alive in that house. Hiding, hoping. That one sound, click, might have been her final cry for help. We'll never know. But damn, it makes your heart hurt. And that's why we keep telling these stories. Not to scare you, not to depress you, but to remind you that danger doesn't always knock loud. Sometimes it slips in through a window. Sometimes it wears a friendly face. And listen, if you're a parent, this part is for you. We linked a real safety course in the description and pin comment. It was built by law enforcement, taught by folks who've lived through it. It shows how to talk to your kids about danger, not with fear, but with truth. They teach how to spot warning signs, how to say no, how to get away fast. You don't need a gym. You don't need to be tough. You just need to be ready, because the next Jonelle could be your neighbor, could be your niece, could be your child. And one more thing, you know who helped break this case open? Technology, forensics, persistence. It was a construction crew that found her body, doing their job, digging dirt, just by chance. Or maybe fate. That bone they hit, it was her voice coming back, saying, I'm still here. Don't forget me. And thank God, they didn't. The Matthews family finally brought her home. They gave her a real grave, not a cross in the woods, not a missing person flyer, but a place to rest. Jim Matthews, Jonelle's dad, he said something at her service. He said, we don't understand why this happened, but we do know one thing. Jonelle's life mattered. Her story mattered. And he's right, because it still does. 35 years. You know how long that is? That's enough time for a guilty man to build a new life. Enough time for a little girl to be forgotten. But not by her family, not by the town, and not by the people who refused to give up. When Jonelle's body was found in 2019, buried in a shallow grave out in oil field land, It shook everything loose. The pain, the hope, the anger. They found her with the same red sweater she wore to the choir concert, still wrapped around her bones, still waiting to go home. She was buried in a desolate patch of dirt like trash. But she wasn't trash. She was someone's daughter, someone's sister, someone worth the world. You want to know what real evil is? It's not a monster in the woods. It's a man who watches a child sing, then puts a bullet in her head, and keeps that secret for decades, while pretending he's just another neighbor. Steve Pankey walked free for most of his life, attended church, ran for public office, smiled at people in grocery stores, and all that time, he carried the truth like a shadow. Long, dark, stuck to his heels. When they arrested him in 2020, the Matthews family didn't cheer. They cried, because even justice hurts when it comes too late. Jonelle never got to grow up, never got her first kiss, never graduated high school, never had kids of her own. All those years stolen. And for what? Because one man couldn't control himself? Because he wanted to feel power? Because he thought he could hide? Well, she didn't stay hidden. Her story crawled out of the dirt. Her bones screamed louder than his lies. And now we know the truth. Even if the courts didn't say murder, we know what happened. We know who did it. And we know who she was. Jonelle Renee Matthews, 12 years old, sang like an angel, trusted people too much, loved her family with her whole heart. And all she wanted that night was to come home, kick off her shoes, and watch TV. That's all. And somebody took it all from her. Let me say this one more time. In the U.S., a child goes missing every 40 seconds. National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, 2023. Every 40 seconds. That's why this ain't just a story. It's a warning, a lesson, and a plea. Talk to your kids. Check the locks. Look people in the eye. And trust your gut. We added a real family safety course in the description and pin comment. It's not fancy. It's not long. But it shows you and your kids how to handle moments like this. How to act fast. How to say something when something feels wrong. Because Jonelle didn't get that chance. But maybe someone else still can. So where's the Matthews family now? Jim and Gloria, they're older, weary, but they still speak her name. They still tell her story. Not because it's easy, but because it matters. Jennifer, her sister, she's grown now. She still remembers the giggles, the braids, the nights they stayed up past bedtime. She still dreams about her. Sometimes Jonelle's grown. Sometimes she's still 12. But always, she's smiling. They got her a proper headstone. Not just a marker. Not just a memory. It says her name. It says the dates. And it says, we will never forget. And they won't. And neither will we. Because Jonelle's story isn't just about what happened. It's about what can happen to any of us if we look away, if we stay quiet, if we stop paying attention. This story, it started with a Christmas concert and ended in a grave. But in between, there's a lesson every parent needs to hear. Every kid needs to know. And every community needs to remember. Because silence can bury the truth. But it can't kill it. Not forever. And now, we got another story to tell. One that started with a missing backpack and ended with a freezer full of secrets. You're watching An Unbelievable True Story, where we don't just tell stories to scare you. We tell them to prepare you. Stick with us. We're just getting started.